After learning the ropes with his dad at his company, Josh had larger ambitions for one of his own.
I told my wife when I started it, we're probably going to have 6 months or so that are going to be hard. And it was maybe 2 months. And it really wasn't struggling 2 months. It was just uneasy 2 months. The marketing started hitting, and I did drain fields by myself for a year straight.
With his dad's blessing and a $10,000 pump truck, Josh has been driving steady growth at Lakeland Septic. Listen in. Josh, you own Lakeland Septic. Where are you located?
I'm in Lakeland, Florida, and that is located right between Tampa and Orlando.
So a pretty populated place.
Very.
How did you get into the septic business down there?
My dad.
Your dad started Lakeland?
He didn't start Lakeland. He actually still owns Atomic Septic, which is here in town. And so, yeah, that's usually how does that go? I see that struck interest, which usually does.
Yeah, everyone. I'm sure it does. I mean, are you friendly competitors or?
Oh yeah,
I was down the road you don't want to talk about. We can divert.
No, I was just with him this morning. No, we're
okay.
Yeah,
there's room enough for two of you. In other words.
Yeah, he's a one-man crew. Has no interest in being anything else. He's real happy how it goes, and I'm the complete opposite. So
when you were a kid growing up, was your dad in the septic business then?
Yes, on and off. He worked at a lot of places when I was younger. I would say around like 6th grade, it started and never stopped. So he worked for other people, and at some point he got in with one of the biggest companies, I would say, in the state, which is also here in town. I'd rather not say their name, but
good.
They're real competition. So, but no, he worked for them. He learned a lot from them, and luckily, when he decided to go off on his own, I was there. So I started in high school with him.
Well, that's kind of what I was wondering. So he decided to go off on his own, and he started his business, and you were learning under him kind of because did he force you to, or did you actually like want to learn?
I would say, I don't know that I wanted to learn.
Because you were a teenager.
It's like, I wouldn't say I think I accidentally learned, or maybe I wanted to and didn't know, because it's not something I had an ambition for or anything like that early on. And I left a lot. I went and got jobs, good jobs around that are here in town for the city and for
this is all still in your teens, or is this kind of moving into your 20s then too?
That was into my 20s. Like I would leave, thinking I want to go have a career somewhere, not septic. But at some point I realized I'm really good at septic. I kept going back, and at one point I realized like this is what I need.
Well, you said something interesting there. At some point you had an epiphany, like I actually like doing the septic thing.
Yeah.
Oh, how old are you at that point? Or what year is it roughly?
Like 20, probably. I was probably 25, 26. So I don't know what year that would have been. That would have been like 2014, 15.
Okay. So around 2014, 2015, you decide like my career path is going the septic direction.
Yeah.
Is that when you start Lakeland, or do you go back and work with your dad?
Yeah, it was always go back and work with my dad. And just realizing because we're in a really populated area, and we have a lot of contractors here. So we have a lot of competition here in our county. So you look around at those guys, and at some point you realize, oh, I know more than most of these guys do. And, my dad has a famous saying, he's forgotten more than they know. So,
yeah, that's a classic old guy saying.
And that was kind of like, it was like, okay, I'm pretty good at this. I know things that they don't even know exist in this, so I can do something here for him. And then down the road, it just got to where my mom actually made the suggestion, like, hey, you should start your own, maybe.
Well, your dad, and this isn't meant to be disparaging in any way. Your dad is kind of a classic old school septic pumper, where they basically they own their company. They don't mind working it. They'd rather not deal with having any employees unless it's somebody they can trust, like you were. And they're happy. They're content doing what they're doing as a one-man show. And it sounds like you weren't cut from that same pattern.
No, there was a lot of ambition when I worked with him to do all of these things I do now for myself before him, and everything was going to be, that was the ambition. But yeah, you hit it. You're perfectly. He is.
So talk to me about what that looks like. At some point you just go and you talk to your dad and be like, hey, listen, I have all these ideas floating around in my head. You don't really have the desire to go this direction with your business, which I respect. I'm going to jump out on my own. And how do you make that transition? Do you just hang out the Lakeland Septic sign and be like, I'm in business?
Well, it definitely wasn't that smooth of a conversation. It was the hardest decision I've ever made. It's still, sometimes I think about it and I like, it sucks that it happened, but it's not a bad thing. It didn't happen on bad terms or anything. But once my mom planted the seed, it, like, that tree's grown. It's gone. I'm not that type of person. Like, once it's in my head, the ideas start flowing and so no, it was, I went to him, I told him, this is what I want to do. There really wasn't a why. There wasn't, I want to do these things. That's why. It was more like, I pointed at my mom, was like, it's her idea. So
well, that's good. You had a scapegoat. You've got all these ideas floating around in your head. So you decide to start your own business. Where do you get the money, to go out and, finance or figure out your original equipment? I assume it's just you right from the get-go, right?
Yeah. When I made that decision, it was probably July of 2019. And I told him, I set a hard date, end of October, I'm done. And he kept on, he's like, you can work for me still, get your money together. And I was like, I can't, that's not how, like, I have to, if it's going to fail, it's going to fail, and I'm going to go down with it. And so that otherwise you're not going to work. It's not going to be the same. So money wise, it was in October. I'm done. I started putting things together probably August. I had the website built in July. That, so it was starting to do its thing. I started doing marketing and everything. And then I got a loan for $10,000 and I bought a truck from him for $10,000.
Wow. So he was supportive, all jokes aside and everything, even though I'm sure there was a little friction there, he was supportive this whole time.
Oh, 100%. And there's definitely, he hated it. He hated every single part of it that I was leaving. But now I would have to assume he doesn't hate it and he really enjoys it because I've been very successful. So,
Well, so let's go back to 2019. You get a loan, you get your first truck from him. You've been in the business long enough now at this point to know, like, sometimes an old truck is an old truck. Yeah. How does all of that start to play out when you're trying to start this? You just got to do what you got to do to get going. Is that kind of what your mentality was?
Yeah. I mean, it definitely was an old truck. It had plenty of issues, broke down a bunch. But when I first started, because that truck had some issues moved right out of the gate, it had issues. I didn't pump. I marketed hard for drain fields only, repairs, new installs. And I was prepared. I told my wife when I started it, we're probably going to have 6 months or so that are going to be hard. And it was maybe 2 months. And it really wasn't struggling 2 months. It was just uneasy 2 months. The marketing started hitting, and I did drain fields by myself for a year straight. And I really didn't pump tanks unless I had to pump a tank.
Let's go backwards a little bit. Was your dad doing septic install and repair?
Yeah.
Okay, so he was doing that too. I was thinking for some reason he was just doing pumping, but he was doing that too.
Yeah, in Florida, with our license, we do both.
Okay, so now you start the business and you realize, like, listen, my truck is unreliable, so I can't bank money doing this. but there's going to be money in something where I don't have to have such dedicated equipment and go to a plumbing supply house, get the whatever I need to fix stuff up and do it that way. But you keep talking about marketing, and your background was never really marketing. You were working for your dad. Like, where are you getting this marketing knowledge from?
So when I worked for my dad, I handled a lot of that stuff for him, as he wanted it. But I would just learn. I read books. I took courses online. I took some in college, some courses in college.
Well, we didn't talk about
most of it
college.
was just-
So you went to college as well?
Yeah. I didn't
Did you
finish.
graduate or no?
No.
Hey, I'm not judging. You seem to be doing just fine. So you have like this marketing background that you were either self-taught or learned a little bit in college. You're still kind of shooting from the hip. What is your marketing strategy there, right? When you first start that in 2019, 2020, are you paying for Google ads because that gets expensive? Are you just making a website and figuring out how to do things organically? What are you doing?
So my plan was from the get-go, do everything everybody else is not doing. Marketing wise.
Do tell. I want to hear this.
I've watched, I grew up around all these guys in town. I see all their advertising. So everything they're not doing, I'm going to do, which was Google ads were a thing for them and my dad, but no one actually did it right. And yeah, it can be, Google ads can break you fast if you don't.
Well, it's funny you say nobody was doing it right and it can break you fast, because that's exactly, if you're not hiring a professional to do it, or you're not doing your homework on Google ads, your money is literally just making Google rich, not you.
Oh yeah. And the website was definitely a big part of it. I had the website built early. It was on Google so they could start doing it, staying and moving up. The name of the company was not, it was very purposeful. Lakeland Septic Company is one of the #1 search keywords in our area. So
yeah, inadvertently, not realizing the company name is the same as the search term.
Yeah, and I did that on purpose.
Good move.
That was like a jump start. It was like a cheat code. I'm going to jump this many people in line when it comes to Google. So that was a big part of it. But Facebook was the biggest. Nobody was doing Facebook at all in this area. My dad had a Facebook page. I made it. But even the big guy, I think they had a Facebook page, but they did not utilize it. It was more of on Christmas, we're going to post a Merry Christmas picture, that type of thing. They weren't, and I took a completely different approach. I treated it like it was Nike. I was in there posting every day, everything we would, I say we, it's we now, but what I would do, I was posting everything. And when I would post it, I was writing it. I couldn't afford to pay anybody. So I was writing those captions like I was speaking to the customer, not so where they would understand it. This is what you're seeing. This is what we're doing. And it, for whatever reason, which has changed now, but Facebook was huge.
I'm glad you said that, because 2020, Facebook used to be really nice to all the pages where you didn't have to pay to play.
Yeah.
So you could get a little bit of traction on those posts you're talking about.
Yeah.
Which sucks now, in my opinion, because Facebook has now made it, especially if you're set up as a business page, and maybe you can concur with me, or maybe you can teach me on this. You can make that same post that maybe back in 2020, you'd get, you were small back then, 30, 50, 100, 200 likes maybe. Now you post that exact same thing back then that would get a little traction and you get 0.
Yeah. Oh, well, even on the ad side, because I would go in and I would boost the post, or I'd run an ad, and you could hone in on like a zip code, which I did, and certain things, and something changed somewhere where it's really hard to do. And
they got sued way back when. I don't know if you knew that. Back in the day when you placed your ads, you could pick your demographics right down to like people's job titles.
Oh yeah, and I did.
Yeah, and they since got sued, so you can still pick a zip code, but you can't pick like a job title or someone's income. which is
Yeah.
another one I think you used to be able to pick.
Yep.
But even then, so have you moved to more of the pay for play? Like, are you just paying a small amount to boost your posts now just to get them out there?
Yeah. So now we pay somebody to handle it. It's
To
just
do all of
there's
it?
too much going on for me to do it. I'm still very heavily involved. I'm sure I aggravate them because I am still very much involved. I still post stuff on all of our social media myself. They post some, but no, that we do a lot of Google, a ton of Google actually, pay for click. Facebook, we run ads, but it's more just branding instead of like we're not looking for Facebook ads to, you know, make someone call us right away. Whereas Google, that's the goal. Like if you click it, we want your job.
Facebook plants the seed and Google makes them recognize the company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we do a lot of both. We don't spend a ton on Facebook, but Google is, you know, you gotta spend on Google in our area.
You mentioned now that you have a professional company that helps you with that, which I think is the smart way for somebody, again, who isn't very well versed in the Google world, because your return on ad spend, or ROAS, as people in the profession like to talk about it, can get away from you in a hurry. Does that company help you realize, like, my return on ad spend here on Google is actually working to help Lakeland Septic grow versus just, you know, putting that money out, you know?
Yeah, no, they're really on top of it. And, you know, Google always changes too, which makes it hard. Like when I was doing it myself, I would spend 2 or 3 hours a night every single day of the week on my Google ads to go in and say, all right, well, this did this. I need to change this.
Well, and they move stuff and they change, you know.
Yes. And when they change, oh, well, then now we have this, and now you don't understand it. So you got to spend a week on YouTube trying to figure out what in the world this new feature is and how to use it. Or you're going to go broke.
On you going from doing all this yourself, like let's call it 2020 at this point, to being able to grow into a business that was big enough to be able to sub that out? Was that just recent, or was that, you know, year or two in?
That was I hired a few guys here and there throughout, and it never worked. I'm willing to bet part of it was me, because I want to be a part of it. I want to know all these. I have these questions. I want you to answer it. But these guys I hired, we're probably going on 2 years this year. So probably 2020. It was like June of 23. I would say.
How big are you? How long did it take you to go from working by yourself to when did you hire your first employee?
I had a guy, very part-time, 2-3 days a week. Early 2020. He didn't last long. So it was a lot of me. And then 2021, I hired a guy, a friend of my brother's that went to school with him, had gotten laid off or quit his job, whatever happened. That day, I posted on my personal Facebook page, hey, I just need somebody that'll work. And he needed a bridge between jobs. And right now, that guy is my lead installer.
That's great though. It's really nice when that can fall on your lap. I mean, honestly, I think that's probably how your dad had to feel about you. And, you know, and then he lost you. That's probably the same deal you got going on right now in a roundabout way.
Yeah, I'm not sure my dad knew I had all this in me. I mean, he knew marketing wise I had it, but I say some crazy things sometimes, like, you know, marketing wise, I'm like, oh, let's do this. And for him, it's scary when I'm on my own. Get in a swan suit. So what?
You say, like, I'm going to get in a swan suit and
like my swan suit. That's the craziest thing I've ever done.
Does that work, or is that just something like, let's throw this at the wall and see if this works?
I don't think it works. It's probably the biggest waste of money. I'll never tell anybody what I spent on that, but it is I mean, it's fun. It's good for community events where there's kids. You know, the Swan has our shirt on, so and we do have some stuff planned here soon.
What's wacky about the internet and marketing and developing your brand on the internet is you just never know.
Yeah.
So I'm backing you on the swan suit, regardless of what it costs. You just never know. And sometimes you have to do those things where it seems so obscure, but then all of a sudden you're like, well, but look what's happening here. It got shared all over Florida.
Yeah. Well, so our city was gifted a swan in the 50s by Queen Elizabeth. Is the swan. That's the swan. There's the swans in our logo, the suit. I had somebody draw the cartoon, I think in 2020, just for fun for my kids. I wanted stickers made. And then I had an idea like, oh, I can make this a mascot suit.
Yeah.
I did not realize it would be 1,000 degrees inside of that suit, which is the problem in Florida. I didn't think of that part, and it is miserable to be inside of.
So
you to get off, so it's not like, oh, I'm overheating. It's not like that.
You're stuck.
You need, it's pretty rough.
You've built this business now. You had your first guy, which happened to be like a friend of your brother's. How many employees are you guys running today?
Right now we have 4 employees and myself. We just posted yesterday. We're hiring one more.
So you're still growing.
Oh yeah. We just got a new truck this week, a new service truck this week. We need a new employee. So yeah, it's definitely growing pretty.
What are your goals for this thing? Are you in your head? Is the sky the limit, or do you see? Is there going to be a flat point at some? Where do you see this?
I want to be the biggest in Florida. So no, I don't see us. I don't see limits. No.
Well, that's interesting you say that. You want to be the biggest in Florida. Does that mean you want Lakeland Septic to grow to Ocala, or do you start Ocala Septic?
Yeah, so I have plans. I have an idea for that, because that is a problem. Lakeland Septic really.
Let's not. I don't want to
expand out. But I have my dad, who owns Atomic Septic, and eventually I will. I'm gonna buy. That's my only goal besides just growing and providing for my guys and making sure they're good. My only goal is to eventually buy Atomic Septic.
And you can grow through acquisition of your dad's company. Is that kind of your preferred growth strategy? Is maybe do some small acquisitions from guys like your dad, who there aren't a lot of exit strategies for those smaller pump businesses, because typically there isn't enough EBITDA or profit to attract a big time buyer.
Yeah.
Especially because they won't get their money back out of it unless they're already in the business, have the proper licensing, so it would be a good strategy for somebody like you who's already in there to go in and gobble up some of these companies that have a good name recognition, and might be on the fringe of where you service now. Is that kind of maybe one of the roads you've looked at?
So I don't really have any interest in expanding outside of where I'm like my county, Polk County, and then Hillsborough is Tampa. And there's a few little counties around there that we would be into, but I want Atomic. I just, my dad built his business, and I want Atomic to be big. I want it to be all those places. So I do have plans. I want to buy him out eventually when he's ready. He absolutely has no interest right now, but eventually when he's ready, and use that name to go into those other counties and do more. Grow it in Septic. Those guys that go everywhere, like we're in North Florida and South Florida. It usually doesn't work great in Florida for whatever reason. I don't know what that is, but so when I say I want to be the biggest in Florida, I mean number of employees, number of trucks. But I would never grow outside of where I always want to make sure that we can pay our employees. So I don't want to have so many employees that we have to pay them a little bit. So that may be my ceiling is, all right, we're going to get to this number, and everyone's still making great money, but we're going to work our butts off. Which is what
you've got a comfort zone there, whether you talk, like about 3 different counties or an area you're comfortable with. There's a comfort zone there, both in geography and company size, and you don't want to maybe lose the culture that you're establishing right now.
because there is a culture here for sure, and it all is around the guys. Like I do my stuff, and I'm constantly teaching these dudes, and I never keep anything from them. So if we're doing like a big lift station, I explain every part of that job to them instead of just saying, hey, grab this part. Like I want them to understand how it works and why it works. And that is the culture, because it bleeds down. My two top guys are training guys, to do this job. So unfortunately we are busy. I can't be everywhere. So I have to have little me's around now it's not just me anymore. So they have to be an extension of me.
Learn more about Josh and Lakeland Septic at lakelandsepticcompany.com, and follow along with Josh and the crew on Instagram at Lakeland Septic Company.